My father looked me straight in the eyes and said, I know you paid off the entire $780,000 mortgage, but we're giving the house to your brother. They changed the locks. They erased my sacrifice. They thought I'd stay silent forever. But they forgot one thing. I had a legal weapon they never saw coming. This is the story of how I took back everything they tried to steal from me. The night I found the unopened mortgage letters, everything changed. I wasn't even looking for them. I had come home for the weekend just to check on my parents. They'd been arguing more than usual. My mother's smile had become strained, and my father kept insisting everything was fine. But on that evening, when I opened the cabinet under the kitchen sink looking for a sponge, a stack of letters slid out. Thick, stamped envelopes, all marked urgent. Final notice. Payment overdue. Foreclosure process initiating. I remember whispering, why didn't they tell me? I'm Maya Carter, the dependable child, the one who never asked for anything, the one who was always told, you're the strong one. But strength doesn't mean you don't hurt. I took those letters upstairs and sat on my childhood bed. My father passed the hallway without noticing me. My mother was folding laundry, humming like life wasn't collapsing around them. They were drowning, and they had chosen not to reach for me, not even once. That night, I made a decision, quietly, secretly, foolishly, with love. I would save our home. Not for gratitude, not for praise, but because I couldn't stand the thought of my parents losing everything they'd built. So I paid it. The payments, the penalties, the compounding interest, all of it. 5 years. 5 years of skipped vacations, canceled hobbies, sleepless nights, and working 2 jobs while my brother, Dylan, partied through college like life owed him comfort. And my parents? They never asked where the money came from. They just let the relief wash over them and pretended the problem had fixed itself. The only person who knew the truth was my uncle, Edward Lane, a quiet man with steel in his spine, a man who read people like open books and never underestimated me. One day, when I was about 2 years into paying the mortgage, he called me into his office. He closed the door, studied me, and said, Maya, you're doing something no one else is seeing, aren't you? I didn't deny it. He nodded, thoughtfully, and pulled out a file. It was a trust, one that would list me as a responsible party tied to the property, with long-term authority over it. He said, your kindness is a strength, but you need protection from the day your kindness is misunderstood as weakness. I didn't fully grasp what he meant, not yet, but I signed, and he filed the paperwork quietly, ensuring everything was legal. And over the next 3 years, I finished paying the entire $780,000. I didn't expect applause, but I didn't expect betrayal. On the day of Dylan's graduation, our living room full of family, congratulatory banners, cheap champagne, and a buffet my mother spent all night preparing, my life's biggest wound came casually wrapped in pride. My father clinked his glass. Everyone fell silent. Today, he said, loud and proud, we celebrate Dylan, our brilliant boy, and as a reward for his hard work, we're gifting him the family house. My heart punched against my ribs. My mouth went dry. I stepped forward, trying to speak, but my father raised a hand at me. As for you, Maya, he added, not even looking at me, I know you paid off the mortgage, but we're giving the house to the child who actually needs it. The room gasped. Someone dropped a fork. And I
I felt something inside me crack. They weren't just ignoring my sacrifice, they were erasing it. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. Dylan smirked like he'd just won a prize he'd barely earned. And then they told me I wasn't needed at the after-party celebration. They didn't actually say the words, "You're not invited," but they might as well have. I left, not crying, not begging, not pleading, just hollow. I didn't know this moment, this humiliation, was exactly what would lead to their entire plan collapsing around them. And it wouldn't be me alone who brought them down. It would be Uncle Edward and a trust document they had forgotten existed.
I didn't go home that night after the graduation disaster. I drove around the city in silence, letting the streetlights smear across my windshield like blurred tears. I wasn't crying. I was processing. Processing that the people I sacrificed everything for had just handed my life's work to someone who had never lifted a finger. How did I let it get this far? But the universe wasn't done with my parents. Not yet. Because the next morning, when I finally gathered the courage to drive home, my key didn't fit the lock. My own house? The house I paid for? The house I saved from foreclosure? The house tied to a legal trust with my name on it? And the key wouldn't turn. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I jiggled the lock, tried again, even checked the keychain. But then, I heard footsteps. My father opened the door just far enough to talk through it, not far enough to let me in. He didn't look ashamed, not guilty, not even conflicted, just inconvenienced. "Maya," he said, like he was scolding a neighbor's kid, "we changed the locks last night. Dylan needs space. He's moving in, and your presence will complicate things." My presence? He nodded, annoyed. "We appreciate what you did, truly. But you're an adult. You should be focusing on your own life now. Let your brother have this one." One thing? The $780,000 one thing I paid for? And where do you expect me to go? Father shrugged. That's not our responsibility anymore. Before I could respond, he shut the door, fully, firmly. The finality of it echoed louder than any scream. I sat on the porch for maybe a minute, staring at the door, at the welcome mat, at the home I wasn't welcome in. But the sadness lasted only a breath, because something colder, sharper, steadier settled inside me. A decision. I stood up, pulled out my phone, and called the one man who always understood more than he said, Uncle Edward. He answered on the second ring. "Riley?" They locked me out. Silence. Heavy. Loaded. Then Edward said, "Come to my office, now." His office smelled faintly of leather and old books. He closed the blinds before he even spoke to me. "Sit," he said. I sat. He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick, sealed envelope. It was labeled with my name. "Your father has been trying for months to override the trust," he said, "but he can't." I blinked. "What do you mean, trying?" Edward placed the envelope in my hands. "These are the trust papers. You have full legal standing. The house cannot be transferred, gifted, or sold without your signature."
So they knew I had rights? Edward nodded. They knew. They just thought you'd never use them. My throat tightened. Not with sadness, with clarity. They thought I would stay quiet forever. He leaned forward, voice low and firm. They underestimated the wrong woman. I stared at the documents, my name printed clean and immovable on every page. And that was the exact moment things shifted, not just emotionally, but legally. Because once a trust dispute is active, the city must be notified, and once the city is notified, the property becomes frozen, untouchable, non-transferable, non-giftable, dead center in the middle of Dylan's big house gift celebration. Perfect timing. My next call was to Patrick O'Neill, the attorney known for his shark-like instincts and bulletproof calm. Patrick didn't react dramatically. He simply said, "Bring me the documents. I'll handle the rest." And I believed him, because for the first time, I wasn't the one fighting alone. Hours later, my cousin Nena came to see me. She closed the door, sat beside me, and whispered, "My dad tried to warn you. Mom overheard your parents talking. They were planning to transfer everything behind your back right after the celebration." I stared at her, stunned. Nena squeezed my hand. "But the trust stopped them. They can't do anything without you now." I felt a slow, rising heat in my chest. Not rage, but vindication. They thought they had locked me out. Instead, they had walked themselves into the one trap they couldn't escape. And tomorrow, the day of Dylan's grand celebration barbecue, the city officials would walk into that house with papers that would stop their fantasy dead. They had no idea what was coming.
The morning of Dylan's celebration barbecue was bright. Too bright. The kind of sunshine that mocks your pain. But I didn't feel pain anymore. I felt certainty. Patrick met me in the parking lot behind my parents' house. He wore his usual dark suit and that expression that said, "I'm about to ruin someone's very bad plan." "Remember," he said as he adjusted his briefcase, "you don't speak unless I tell you to. Today is about facts, not emotions." "I'm ready." He gave a small nod. "Good, because they aren't." When we walked into the backyard, the party was already in full swing. Balloons, decorations, a grill smoking in the corner, everyone clapping as Dylan showed off like a reality show contestant. My parents froze the moment they saw me. My mother whispered something to my father, who stiffened, jaw clenching. Dylan frowned like my presence was ruining his spotlight. Then my father stepped toward me, anger barely hidden. "I told you," he hissed. "Today is about your brother. You don't need to be here causing drama." "I'm not causing anything." Patrick cleared his throat. "Actually, Mr. Carter, she's here because of the house." The word house changed the air. Like a switch flipped. Conversations died. Forks hovered mid-air. Then, right on cue, city officials walked in through the side gate with clipboards and sealed folders. My father turned pale. My mother's mouth dropped open. Dylan looked confused, then annoyed. One of the officials stepped forward. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter, we're here regarding the property at 118 Amberstone Lane. We received filings indicating a trust dispute. Until this matter is resolved, all transfers, gifts, and changes in ownership are immediately suspended." Gasps, murmurs. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." My father stammered, "That must be a mistake. The house is ours. We're giving it to our son." And that, Patrick cut in smoothly, is exactly the problem. He handed the official a folder. Inside was the trust with my name across every page, unmovable, legally binding, the truth they tried to hide. My parents looked like the ground had disappeared beneath them. Edward, who had been standing quietly near the patio, stepped forward then, cool, steady, unbothered. He raised a hand. Let's not lie to these officers. Maya has been financially responsible for that house for nearly 5 years. The trust acknowledges her contribution, and you knew it. My father's face twisted. We didn't think she'd enforce it. So you thought you could just take everything I paid for, and I'd stay silent? My mother stepped toward me, eyes watery. Maya, sweetheart, we were only trying to help your brother. He had dreams, he had a future. And I didn't? Her silence was an admission. Then it happened, the moment everything truly fell apart. One of the officials said, in addition, we have a separate notice. There are missed payments on a vehicle registered to Mr. Dylan Carter. A repossession order was filed this morning. Dylan's head snapped toward my parents. What? You said you paid it. My father mumbled. We didn't have the money. Dylan exploded. What do you mean you didn't have the money? You promised the car was handled. Chaos broke out. Arguments, shouting, finger-pointing. And through it all, I stood still, calm, unshakable. For the first time, I wasn't the quiet daughter in the background. I was the center of the truth. The officials finished their paperwork and handed my parents one last notice. They had 72 hours to vacate the property until the trust dispute was settled. The locks would be changed afterwards. My mother sobbed into her hands. Dylan stormed off, kicking chairs and cursing. My father stared at me with a mix of hatred and fear. He whispered, You ruined us. I stepped closer, voice steady, soft, final. No, you ruined me, and I finally stopped letting you. That evening, after everyone left and the yard fell silent, Edward placed a hand on my shoulder. I'm proud of you, he said, not for fighting them, but for choosing yourself. And that hit harder than I expected, because for the first time I felt relief, strength, a sense of belonging inside my own skin. 3 days later, the locks were officially changed. My parents moved into a small rental in the next town. Dylan moved into a friend's basement. And me? I walked into the house I fought for, not as the forgotten child, but as the woman who saved it and claimed it. Every room held memories, but for the first time, those memories didn't hurt. They reminded me of who I used to be and who I had become. Sometimes love gets twisted into obligation. Sometimes family uses your kindness as a leash. But the moment you choose yourself, the leash snaps, and you walk free.